A very good afternoon to all. This is Dr. Kavita Yadav. Today I'm here to explain about the global warming and what are the global changes around the world in the paper. In this one today we are going to discuss about the few chapters which are left in the chapter which are including in that one. Here I'm going to share my screen. Just wait. Yes, this is that global warming. Yes. In yesterday's class, we discussed about that what are the acid rains, how it will be formed, how it will be effective on human health, and all. In last day class, I want to revise one more time. Yes. In that last class, we discussed about that one, Unit 13 under Block 3, and the climate change, its impact on that agriculture. Climate change is significantly affecting agriculture worldwide, influencing the crop production, livestock health, soil conditions, and that water availability and all. These changes can be threaten food security and dispute the farming communities and all. Uh, then coming to that next one, what are the effects of the climate change? What are the effects of the climate change on agriculture? First one is the rising temperature, increased the heat stress, it reduced the crop yields. Yes, it reduced the crop yield. For example, wheat, rice, maize are particularly a sensitive, alters the growing seasons and leading to the lower productivity, that crop failure. Heat stress affects a livestock, reducing the milk and that meat production and all. Change in rainfall patterns, unpredictable rainfall leads to the droughts and the floods and the damaging crops and soil. Water shortage reduce the irrigation availability. The excessive rainfall causes the soil erosion and the nutrient leaching and all. The next one is that extreme weather events, like extreme weather events, hurricanes. Where is that? Hurricanes, storms, and that storms and that the wildfires destroy the crops and that farming infrastructures. Higher frequency of droughts and that floods disputes the food production and all. Increased pest and the diseases. The warmer climates are the favorable for the some pest, and some diseases, pest and the plant diseases, leading to a great crop losses. Expanding habitat ranges of insects like locusts and the aphids impact the food security and all. Next one is the soil degradation. Um, Here, soil degradation is mentioned about that the higher temperatures speed up the soil degradation and desertification, increased the salinity due to rising the sea levels and effects of coastal farmland and all. Then coming to that next one. Mm, Coming to that, next one, livestock changes. Heat stress produce the fertility and that milk production in animals, and changing the pasture conditions and affecting the grazing animals and all. These are the 6 changes when that particular uh, when this particular climate change particular things, it can show the uh, changes on the climate in the form of agriculture and second one is the okay, absorption strategies for agriculture. So absorption strategies for agriculture means climate resistant crops are developing a drought resistant, flood resistance, and the heat tolerant crops where crop varieties, using genetically modified crops with a standard extreme weather. With that standard extreme weather, using the genetically modified crops with the standard extreme weather conditions, improve water management, um, efficient irrigation techniques, drip irrigation, rainwater harvesting, and all, restoring watersheds and promoting that agroforestry. Next one is the soil conservation practices. Um, Crop rotation and that cover cropping to maintain soil fertility and reduce the tillage and that organic farming methods to prevent that erosion. Uh, Diversification of crops and that livestock, a growing mix of a crops to reduce dependency on a single type, introducing that a climate resilient livestock and breeds all. Technological innovations, precision farming using a AI and that a satellite data for an efficient resource uses, a uh, climate forecasting tools to help farmers to better crop patterns. So crop plan for the farmers for that better which crops will be better for the particular season and the climate season, they will take the right decision. The next one is the sustainable farming policies. The government subsidies of a climate resilient farming practices. Government subsidies for the climate resilient farming practices, promoting carbon sequestration techniques to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Next one is that global effects and the policies. Paris Agreement reducing the greenhouse gas emissions to mitigate climate change, sustainable development SDGs, targeting zero hunger and the climate action, agroecology and organic farming, encouraging sustainable agricultural practices and all. Future challenges and considerations, balancing food security with environmental conservations, educating farmers on climate adaptation strategies, investing in research for more silent crops, more resilient, sorry, not a silent, research for the more resilient crops and that farming techniques and all. Then coming to that block 4, acid rains. What is that acid rain? What is the term acid rain? Acid rain refers to the precipitation of a rain, snow, fog, and dust that contain high level of acidic components, primarily sulfuric acid H2SO4 and that nitric acid HNO3. It is caused by the release of a sulfur dioxide and a nitrogen oxides into that atmosphere, which react with the water, oxygen, and other chemicals to form that acids. Um, Next, causes of the acid rain are natural sources, volcanic eruptions, release a large amount of sulfur compounds into the atmosphere, a lightning produce the nitrogen oxides, and a decaying vegetation and that wildfires emit the sulfur compounds and the nitrogen compounds naturally. Then coming to the next one, human activities, burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas combustion in power plants and that vehicles, and industrial emissions, factories and refineries release a large amount of sulfur and nitrogen compounds. Vehicle exhaust, automobiles and aircraft contribute to the nitrogen oxide emissions and all. These are the primary causes of the acid rains, which is, this one is that human activities, a primary cause. These are the natural causes. Then coming to that next one, effect of the acid rain. And so what is the effect of the acid rain means? Environmental effects. First one is that soil degradation, acid rain depletes the essential nutrients, harming plant growth and all. Water pollution, acidic lakes and that rivers kill fish and that aquatic life. Forest damage and weakness, weaken trees by removing the nutrient from the soil. Ecosystem disruption harms that wildlife and reduce the biodiversity. Then coming to that next one, how that acid rains can show the adverse effect on human health. First one is that a respiratory problems, sulfur compounds and nitrogen compounds contribute to asthma, bronchitis, and that lung diseases. Contaminated drinking water, acid rain can leach toxic metals like mercury and lead into the water sources. And third one is the damage of infrastructure and economy. Damage of infrastructure and economy, where it is. Mm. Damage of infrastructure and that economy, a corrosion of buildings and the monument, acid rain erodes a limestone, marble, and that metal structures, reduce the crop yields, affecting agriculture by lowering the soil quality and all. Next one is the solutions to the acid rain, reducing the emissions, a switch to the clean energy. Use renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydro, and scrubbers in power plants. Install a flue gas and a desulfurization systems to remove the sulfur compounds. Next one is the catalytic converters in vehicles. Reduce the nitrogen emissions from cars. Uh, and next one, the government policies and the regulations, emission standards, laws to limit the industrial sulfur compounds and nitrogen emissions and all. Cap and trade programs encouraging that industries to reduce the emissions. Public awareness and the lifestyle changes. Okay, energy conservations. They're using energy efficient appliances, reduce fossil fuel consumption, reduce car usage, promote a public transport, cycling and electrical vehicles and all. Use of a limestone treatment and utilizing the acidic and the water bodies with limestone. Next one is that the global efforts to the combat acid rain. So what is the global efforts to the combat acid rains means Clean Air Act USA. Reduced sulfur and nitrogen emissions significantly. International agreements, uh, countries working together to reduce that cross border pollutions. Technology innovations development in technological innovation development of green energy solutions and all. Then coming to the conclusions, acid rain is a serious environmental issue that damage the ecosystems, human health, and that infrastructure. However, with that strict regulations, clean energy sources, and that public awareness, its effect can be reduced. Okay, then coming to the clear explanation of the acid rain formations. These are the volatile compounds. Wait. These are the volatile compounds. First one. I'm sorry. Volatile organic compounds is the major one to form that acid rains, and second one is the sulfur compounds, which it is released from our industries and all, and that nitrogenous compounds and that heavy metals also. These four are that main source of the formation of acid rains. And volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides also naturally it is released in that environment. Already we discussed in this chapter at starting, due to the volcanic eruptions, and that due to the volcanic eruptions and what are the degradations and all that are naturally the volatile organic compounds and well as the nitrogen compounds released by our environment naturally, it give the acidic effect to the rain. It is up only up to 10%, not more than that. The remaining percent of the acidic nature can be added by the what are the anthropogenic activities which are practiced on the surface of the earth by the humans to release that volatile organic compounds, sulfur compounds, um, as well as that nitrogen oxide compounds and heavy metals. When these four compounds come and react with the gaseous pollutants in that atmosphere, what are the other gaseous pollutants which are present in that in atmosphere can be reacted, and can increase the acidic nature of the molecules, particulate pollutants in the atmosphere, pollutants in cloud, water, and that precipitates. So, wetter deposition can be absorbed, and that dry depositions, and that all this will can increase the acidic nature of the rainwater. This is called as a rainwater formation. Up to here, everything is clear. Uh, I thought. Then coming to that next one. Then coming to the health effects of a pollution, how that particular acid rain can affect that human health. First one, due to that air pollution, the nervous system will be affected more. So the nervous system will be affected. First of all, um, particulate matter and ozone and the carbon dioxide can be inhaled, can increases the respiratory illness. Then sulfur and nitrogen compounds can increase the cardiovascular diseases. The volatile organic compounds can cause um, cancer risk, nausea, and that skin irritations. And when that particular pesticides can directly enter into our food chain, this is also called as a gastrointestinal problems, gallbladder stones, and all. When that particular water pollution, through that particular water pollution, the number of bacteria and parasites, chemicals, and the water, the dust particles, and all directly entered into our body, it leads to the headache and fatigue. And suddenly, some people are suddenly entered into that coma, brain tumors, and all these are affected by the serious water pollution, by the bacteria, parasites, and the chemicals. Next one is the soil contamination. All of us know how that particular soil will be contaminated due to the adding of the more pesticides and fungicides to that crops. That crop pesticides and fungicide residues will be present on the surface of that particular layer, surface on that a particular layer of the soil. It can be a effect that is nothing but a soil contamination and all. uh, Totally, directly or indirectly, it may be any pollution, that may be a air pollution, that may be a water pollution, that may be a soil contamination, and all each and everything can show that a serious adverse effect on human health. This is a very known fact, right? Uh, Just wait a minute. Yes, this is the acid rain. Can also shows that adverse effect on the plant growth. Then what will happen? The acidic nature of that water, which can be penetrate into that soil. It can damage the root system of a plant. It can absorb all the nutrients from the plants and substitute the nutrients with that water, the chemicals which were present in that acid rains. The nutrients will take off from the plants. That's why the plants get weakened, and there is a no photosynthesis process continuously. There is a number of diseases, and the acidic nature of the plants, the acidic nature of the environment, and that water cannot be suitable to the plants at all. uh, it can decrease in the crop production and all. This is about that acid rains, and coming to that, that is about up to here. um up to here, that is that up to here, that one is on yesterday's class. That's why I revised on each and every point once again. And coming to that, and today's class, unit 14, unit 14, acid rain impacts. Okay. How that acid rain can show the impact. Acid rain has several harmful effects on environment, infrastructure, and human health. Here, some key impacts will be mentioned for your information. For us, it is a very useful thing. Water bodies, how environment levels, how that water bodies can be affected. Okay, water bodies, lakes, rivers, oceans, how these particular water bodies can affected due to that acid rains. Okay, acid rains lower the pH of the water bodies. Acid rain decreases the pH of the water bodies. Here, water bodies are nothing but the surface water bodies. It may be rivers, lakes, oceans, or maybe a ponds, making them more acidic. Okay, making them, it is a more acidic. These what is that, the acidic nature of the water, it harms that aquatic life, particularly fish and that amphibians, by affecting the reproduction and that survival. If the reproduction system will be affected, then what will happen? The production of a new individuals, it will be low. Then what will happen? Finally, that particular species, they may be ready to join in that endangered species. Till now, the number of wonderful plant species and that animal species and what are it may be, all up to 50% are be extended from this earth because of that pollutions and that pollutions and that increased populations. And everything is maybe a pollute, that may be it is not, anything is not a pure in this world, in the present situation. Everything, either from the highest cost to from the cheapest cut, it is available at any cost. This is the adverse effect of that acid rains on that particular aquatic animals, fishes, and amphibians, and all. It can lead to the loss of biodiversity and the freshwater ecosystem. Yeah, sure, 100%. Okay, then coming to that. uh, Coming to that one, soil and vegetation. Acid rain leaches essential nutrients. Acid rain leaches that essential nutrients, example calcium, magnesium from the soil, making it a less fertile. It releases a toxic metals like aluminum, which can harm the plant roots and slow growth. Um, Forest, especially high altitudes, suffer from the weakened trees, leaf damage, and reduced resistant diseases and the pest. Then coming to the third one, that wildlife acid rain dispute food chains by harming primary products, plants, and that algae. The animals depend on affected water sources, or the plants suffer from the food security, and the toxicity and all. The infrastructure and the buildings, acid rain corrodes the buildings, monuments, and the statues, especially those made of a limestone, marble, and at concrete. The historic monuments like the Taj Mahal and the Parthenons have suffered a damage due to that acid rain. Um, Metal structures, bridges, and that vehicles experience experience increase in the corrosions, leading to a higher maintenance cost. Next one is the human health. Acid rain does not directly harm. Acid rains does not directly harm humans, but the pollutants, sulfur dioxide and that nitrogen oxides that causes acid rain contributes to the respiratory problems. A fine particulate matter from acid rain, it pollutes can lead to asthma, bronchitis, and other lung diseases. Contaminated water and that soil can indirectly affect human food sources and the drinking water supplies. Okay. That economic impact, damage to the forest and that agricultural land reduces the crop yields, impacting economies resilient on farming. Infrastructure damage leads to increased repair and the maintenance cost. Fisheries suffer due to the loss of aquatic life, affecting their livelihoods. The solutions to reduce the acid rains means reducing the sulfur dioxides and the nitrogen oxides, the emission from factories and that vehicles, using a cleaner energy sources like wind, solar, and the hydroelectric power, implementing implement stricter pollutions and regulations, and using the scrubbers in that industrial plants, encouraging reforestation and the soil treatment to mitigate acid damage and all. This is all about that how that particular acid rains can show the adverse effect on environments and human health. Okay. Then once again, I want to repeat what are the topics till I covered in this. What are the impacts of the acid rain? Please listen carefully. And the acid rain has several harmful effects on that environment, infrastructure, and human health. Here are some key impacts: environmental effects, the water bodies, lakes, rivers, and ocean. Acid rains lower the lower the pH of the water bodies, lower the pH of the water bodies, making them more acidic. This harms the aquatic life, particularly fish and the amphibians, by affecting the reproduction and the survival. It can leads to the loss of biodiversity in freshwater ecosystem. Soil and that vegetation, acid rain leaches essential nutrients, calcium and magnesium from the soil, making it a less fertile. It releases toxic metals like aluminum, which can harm plant roots and slow growth. A forest, especially at high latitudes, suffer from the weakened roots, a leaf damage, and it reduced the resistance to decrease and the pest and pest also. Um, Next one is that a wildlife acid rain dispute food chains by harming the primary producers, that is nothing but that plant and algae. The animals depend on the affected water sources of the plants, suffer from food security, food scarcity, and toxicity. Next one is that infrastructure buildings. Acid rain corrodes the buildings, monuments, and statues, especially those made of a limestone, marble, and that concrete. Historical monuments like a Taj Mahal and the Patman have suffered damage due to that acidic rains. Metal structures, bridges, and that vehicles experience that increased corrosion, leading to the higher maintenance cost. Human health effect. So human health effect. Just give a minute. Yes, let's continue. That infrastructure and buildings. Acid rain corrodes buildings, monuments, and that statues, especially those made up of a limestone, a marble, and concrete. Historic monuments like Taj Mahal and that Patran have suffered a damage due to that acidic rains. Uh, Metal structures, buildings, and that vehicles experience increased corrosion and leading to a higher maintenance cost. Next one is that your human health. Acid rains does not directly harm the humans, but the pollutants, sulfur dioxides, and the nitrogen oxides that caused acidic rain contributes to the respiratory problems. A fine particulate matter from acid rain pollutes can lead to the asthma, bronchitis, and other lung diseases. Contaminated water and the soil can indirectly affect the human food sources and the drinking water supplies. Next one is the economic impact. Next one is that economic impact, damage of forest and that agricultural land, reduce crops yields, impacting economics and reliance on that farming. Infrastructure damage leads to increase the repair and maintenance cost. Fisheries suffer due to the loss of aquatic life and affecting the livelihood. And then coming to that next one, solutions to reduce the acid rains, reducing that sulfur dioxides and that nitrogen oxide emissions from the factories and vehicles, using cleaner energy sources like wind, solar, and hydroelectric power, implementing air pollution regulation and that using scrubbers and industrial plants, uh, encouraging reforestation and the soil treatment to mitigate that acid damage and all. This is all about Unit 14, which we are under, including that acid rains. Then coming to that next one, coming to the next one, Unit 15. In this Unit 15, we are going to discuss about the green solutions to reduce the acid rains. The combat acid rain, we need sustainable solutions that reduce sulfur dioxide and the nitrogen oxide emissions. Here are some environmentally friendly approaches are here. First one is a clean energy alternatives. Um, clean energy alternatives. First one is clean energy alternatives. First one is the renewable energy. Using a wind, solar, hydro, and geothermal energy, reduces the resilience of a fossil fuel, cutting down sulfur and the nitrogen emissions. Bioenergy, biomass and the biogas provides a sustainable alternatives to coal and oil. Next one is the nuclear energy, all through controversial nuclear power generators, electricity without sulfur and nitrogen emissions. Okay. Next one is the energy efficiency and the conservation. Green buildings using energy efficient designs and that materials reduces electricity demand, lowering fossil fuel usage, public transport and that electrical vehicles, encouraging EVs and that a better public transit cut down the vehicle emissions, a major source of acid rain pollutants, a smart grids and LED lightings, a smart electrical system, and that energy efficient appliances help reduce a overall energy consumption. Okay, energy efficiency and conservation, green buildings using energy efficient designs and that materials reduced electricity demand and lowering fossil fuel usage, public transport and that electrical vehicles, encouraging the electrical vehicles and that better public transmit cut downs that vehicle emissions, a major source of acid rain pollutants. Next one is that smart grids and LED lighting, smart electrical system and energy efficient appliances help reduce overall energy consumption. Okay. And then coming to that next one, pollution control technologies. The next one is that a pollution control technologies. Pollution control technologies in that the first one is the scrubbers in power plants. A flue gas desulfurization and removes the sulfur from emissions before they enter the atmospheres. Low nitrogen burners. These are used in the industries to reduce the nitrogen emissions during the combustion. Catalytic converts. Instead, in vehicles, they help convert harmful nitrogen compounds into less harmful gases. First one, coming to this first one, a scrubber in the power plants. Fuel gas desulfurization removes the sulfur from emissions before they enter the atmosphere. Low nitrogen burners. These are used in industries to reduce nitrogen emissions during combustions. Catalytic converts installed in vehicles. They help convert the harmful nitrogenous compounds into the less harmful gases. Okay, now coming to that fourth one, a sustainable agricultural forestry. Sustainable agricultural forestry, organic farming, reduce the use of nitrogen-based fertilizers, which contribute to the nitrogen emissions. Afforestation and reforestation, planting trees, absorb pollutants and restore the damaged ecosystems. And soil liming, adding the limestone, calcium carbonate to acidic soils to neutralize the acidity and helps to restore the plant life. Next one, sustainable agriculture and forestry, organic farming, reduces the use of nitrogen-based fertilizers, which contribute to the nitrogen emissions. Afforestation and reforestation, planting trees helps absorb pollutants and restore the damaged ecosystems. And that soil liming, adding limestone to the acidic soils, neutralize the acidity and helps restore the plant life. Next one is the policy public awareness. So, policy public awareness means storage, environmental, stronger, that is not a storage, that is a stronger environmental regulations. Government can enforce a strict air quality laws like the Clean Air Act to limit sulfur compounds and the nitrogen emissions. Carbon taxes, cap and trade. These policies encourage the industries to reduce emissions by making pollution and more expensive. Education and the green initiatives are raising the awareness about the sustainable energy use and conservation helps individuals contribute to the fight against that acid rain. So, policy, public policy and that public awareness, stronger environmental regulations. Environment can enforce a strict air quality laws like that Clean Air Act to limit sulfur and the nitrogen emissions. Carbon taxes and cap and trade. These policies encourage the industries to reduce the emissions to making pollutions and more expensive. Education and green initiatives, raising the awareness about the sustainable energy use and the conservation helps in individual contribute to the first fight against that acid rain. These are the second one. and these are the third one. Okay. And law and regulations of the acid rains. What are the laws and what are the regulations of that acid rains? Several international and national laws have been enhanced to reduce the acid rain by controlling sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxide emissions. Here are some key laws and that agreements, right? First, I want to erase the above one. Okay. Laws and regulations on acid rain. Several international and national laws have been enhanced to reduce the acid rain by controlling sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide emissions. Here are some key laws and that agreements. The international laws and that agreement on 17 sorry, not 17, on 1979 Geneva Conservation, a long range transboundary air pollution, long range transboundary clad tap. So in the 1979 Geneva Conservation Long Range Transboundary Air Pollution, first international treaty to address acid rain and air pollution. First international treaty to address the acid rain and that air pollutions signed by the European countries, US and that Canada, lead to a several protocols on targeting sulfurs and nitrogen emissions. The 1985 Protocol on Sulfur Reduction. Helsinki Protocol on Sulfur Reduction require participating nations to cut the sulfur emissions by 30% compared to the 1980s level, signed by the European countries, Canada and the USA. In 1994, Oslo Protocol on Future Reduction of sulfur emissions are set as strict limits on sulfur emissions emitted to reduce acid rain by considering a scientific research environmental damage. Okay. Law and regulations on acid rain. Several international and national laws have been enhanced to reduce acid rain by controlling sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxide emissions. Here are some key laws and that agreements, right? International laws and that agreements. In that first one is the 1979 Geneva Convention on Long Range Transboundary Air Pollution, CLATRAP in shortcuts. The first international treaty addressed, it is the first international treaty to address the acid rain and air pollution, signed by European countries, the USA and Canada, lead to several protocols targeting sulfur and nitrogen emissions. And the second one is the 1985 Helsinki protocol on a sulfur reduction. So the 1985 Helsinki protocol on sulfur reduction, in that first point is required participating nations to cut sulfur emissions by 30% compared to the 1980s level, compared to the 1980 level. And signed by European countries, Canada, and the US. And third one is the 1994 Oslo Protocol on further reduction of sulfur emissions. Sulfur emissions, right? First one is the set stickers limit on SO2 emissions, aimed to reduce acid rain by considering scientific research on environmental damage. Yes. And then coming to that next one, the 1999 uh, Gothenburg Protocol is nothing but Gothenburg Protocol targeted multiple pollutants, including sulfur and nitrogens, to occur at acid rains. Okay, are required countries to use a clear technology to reduce the emissions significantly. US laws and the regulations. And next one is that US laws and regulations, Clean Air Act 1970. In that particular Clean Air Act, we have the two amendments. First one held on 1970 and second one is held on 1919. The 20 years gap is there between two amendments. The 1990 Clean Air Act amendments introduced the acid rain program, ARP, means acid rain program, established cap and trade system for sulfur emissions, reducing acid rain effectively. Power plants had to install scrubbers, switch to a low sulfur fuels. Okay, then coming to that, the 1999 Gothenburg Protocol targeted multiple pollutants, including sulfur and nitrogen, to curb that acid rains. Required countries to use the a cleaner technology and reduce the emissions significantly. US laws and that regulations. A Cleaner Air Act. For this Cleaner Air Act, two amendments are there. Two amendments are there. First one in 1970. Second one is on 1990. Okay, on 1919, the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments introduced the acid rain program, established cap and trade system for sulfur emissions, reducing acid rains effectively. Power plants had to install scrubbers or switch to a lower sulfur fuels. Okay. First one is the 1990 Clean Air Act amendments introduced that acid rain programs. The acid rain program is also called as the ARP. ARP. The next one is the established cap and trade system for sulfur emissions, reducing acid rain effectively. Um, Power plants had to install scrubbers or switch to the low sulfur of fuels. Then coming to the next one, cross-state air pollution rule, CSA, CSAPR, cross-state air pollution rule in 2011. It regulates the power plant emissions that contribute to acid rain, smog in downwind states. Cross-state air pollution rules 2011. It regulates the power plant emissions that contribute to the acid rain and the smog in downwind states. Third one is the Canadian laws and that initiatives. The Canadian Air Quality Agreement 1991, landmark agreement between Canada and the USA to cut sulfur and nitrogen emissions lead to a significant reduction in acid rain damage in both countries. Canadian Environmental Protection Act 1999, it regulates air pollutants, including those causing acid rain, encouraging clean energy and emission reductions. And next one is the European Union regulation, the national emission ceilings directives set the limits on the sulfur and nitrogen emissions. The industrial emissions directive control the emission from factories and the power plants. Okay. Cross-state air pollution rule regulate power plant emissions that contribute to acid rain and smog in downwind streets. Canadian laws and the initiatives. Canada US Air Quality Agreement 1991, a landmark agreement between Canada and the USA to cut sulfur and nitrogen emissions. Lead to significant reductions in acid rain damage in both countries. Canadian Environmental Protection Act 1999 regulates air pollutants, including those causing that acid rains. Air pollutants, including those causing that acid rains. It encourages the clean energy and emission reductions. The European Union regulations, the national emissions ceilings directive sets limits on SO2 and NO nitrogen emissions. Uh, the industrial emissions a directive control the emission from factories and the power plants. These are about that laws, and some more will be there. Just wait, we will discuss. The other countries' efforts, China implemented strict emission control and desulfurization technology in local plants. India National Air Quality Monitoring Program tracks air pollutions, including acid rain contributors. Japan use advanced pollution control technologies and international cooperation to curb that acid rain. Impact of these laws, acid rain levels have been significantly decreased in North America and Europe. The countries using a cap and a trade program having successfully reduced the sulfur emissions. Developing nations still struggle with that acid rains due to the rapid industrializations. Other countries' efforts, China implemented China implemented strict emission control and the desulfurization technology in local plants. India National Air Quality Monitoring Program tracks the air pollutions including acid rain contributors. Japan use advanced pollution control technologies and international cooperation to curb that acid rain. Okay. Next one, impact of these laws. Acid rain levels have significantly decreased in North America and Europe. The countries using cap and trade programs have successfully reduced the sulfur emissions. Developing nations still struggle with the acid rain due to the rapid industrialization. What we have discussed up to here, these all are under block 4. Then coming to that, the next block, that is nothing but a block 5, named as a nuclear radiations. Okay. Nuclear radiation overuse, source, effects, and safety measures. We are discussed now. Okay. What is nuclear radiations? So nuclear radiation refers to the energy emitted from atomic nuclei due to a nuclear reactions or radioactive decay. It consists of a different types of radiation, including alpha particles, beta particles, gamma rays, and a neutron radiation. So what is nuclear radiation means? Nuclear radiations refer to the energy emitted. Nuclear radiations refer to the energy is emitted from the atomic nuclei due to the nuclear reactions or the radioactive decay. It consists of different types of radiations, including alpha particles. Alpha particles, heavy, low penetration, stopped by a paper or a skin. So, next one is that beta particle, a lighter medium penetration, stopped by a plastic or aluminum. Gamma rays, high energy, deeply penetrating, requiring lead to concrete shielding. And next one, neutron radiation emitted during the nuclear emissions and highly penetrating. So, nuclear radiation, that nuclear radiation refers to the energy emitted from the atomic nuclei due to that nuclear reactions and that radioactive decay. It consists of different types of radiations, including first one is the alpha particles. It's having a heavy, low penetration and stopped by a paper or a skin. And then next one is that a beta particles and a lighter medium penetration stopped by a plastic or aluminum. And one third one is the gamma rays, high energy, deeply penetrating, requiring lead to the concrete shielding. And fourth one, a neutron radiation emitted during the nuclear emissions and highly penetrating. Next one is a source of nuclear radiations. So what are the source of the nuclear radiations means a natural source and the man-made source are there. Okay. What are the natural sources? So cosmic radiations. Cosmic radiation means the radiation from space higher at high altitudes. What are the cosmic radiations means? The radiations from space higher at high altitudes. Radon gas, a radioactive gas from soil and rocks are common indoors. Next one is the radioactive elements in the earth, uranium, thorium, and the potassium 40. These are the natural sources to cause that nuclear radiations. Okay, source of nuclear radiation. First one is the natural source, and second one is the man-made source. In that natural source, first one is the cosmic radiation. First one is the cosmic radiation, the radiation from space higher at high altitudes. Then next one is the radon gas, a radioactive gas from the soil and the rocks and common indoors. Radioactive elements in the earth, uranium, thorium, and potassium 40. And these are the sources of a nuclear radiations. And next one is that a Next one is that a man-made sources and nuclear power plants used for the energy production with controlled radiations, nuclear weapons, atomic bombs release the extreme radiations, medical applications, X-rays, CT scans, radiation therapy for cancer and all, industrial uses, radiography, sterilization of a metal equipment, and the food, what is the food irradiations. Okay, these are the man-made sources. Man-made sources. In that man-made sources, nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons, nuclear power plants used for energy production with controlled radiation, nuclear weapons, atomic bombs release extreme radiation, medical applications, X-rays, CT scans, radiation therapy for cancers. Next one. mm, Next one is the industrial use, radiography, sterilization of a medical equipment, food irradiations. Then coming to that next one, effect of nuclear radiations. The next one is that effect of that nuclear radiations. Effects of nuclear radiation, short-term effects, acute exposure. Short-term effects, it also called as an acute expose. The radiation, sickness, symptoms include nausea, vomiting, burns, and that organ damage, radiation sickness. And high dose can cause that severe burns, organ failure, or death. Example, Chernobyl workers. Then next one is a long-term effect, a chronic explode. First one is the acute explode, and second one is the a chronic explode. In that chronic exposed, cancer risk will be there increasing in like increases the livelihood likelihood of a leukemia, thyroid, a lung, and the bone cancer. Genetic mutations can cause the birth defects and hereditary diseases. Environmental contamination, soil, water, and the food chain contaminations. Example, uh, fuxmia, fuxma, fuxmia. Okay, and coming to that nuclear disasters and that accidents. Chernobyl accidents. Okay, Chernobyl accidents in 1986 in Ukraine. The reactor explosion caused a widespread radiation exposure. So, the radiation explosion caused a widespread radiation explode. Fukushima, 2011, and Japan, the tsunami triggered the what is that nuclear metal down release the radioactive materials. mm, 3 Mile Island, 1979, United States of America, a partial meltdown with a minimum radiations release. uh, Next one is safety measures and protections. So what are the safety measures and what are the protection means? Personal protection. How we can protect yourself from that radiation means time. First one, a time, minimize, explore duration. And at what time? When, for example, if any person are going to work at the uh, particular stations, radiation station, they are going to minimize their work timings, and at work up to which limit the radiations are not affecting to our health is based on that we can minimize your timings. Um, First one is the time, minimize, explore duration, a distance, stay far from the radiation sources, stay far from the radiation sources, a shielding, use lead, concrete, and that water barriers. Shielding, use the shields to protect from yourself from the radiations, lead a concrete and that water barriers. Then next one is a nuclear safety regulations. The most important one is a nuclear safety regulations, the radiation monitoring, trigger counters, and the demand those masters of for workers, controlled waste disposal, safe storage of nuclear waste in deep geological sites, disaster preparedness, uh, evacuation plans, and that tablets for that radiation engines, and a medical treatment for the radiation exposure. Potassium iodide, Ki. Potassium iodide protects the thyroid from that radioactive iodine. Mm, Slitting therapy removes the radioactive metal from the body. Slitting therapy removes the radioactive metal from the body. Bone marrow transplants used in severe radiation poisoning cases. used in a severe radiation poisoning cases. Okay, then coming to that last one, which is including future nuclear radiation management. Future nuclear radiation management, a safe nuclear reactors. A safer nuclear reactor. Safe nuclear reactors means new designs like thorium reactors reduce the risk and the fusion energy. A clean alternative with a minimal radiation of concern. Advanced radiation shielding, research on a new material for better protection. These are the main three rules which will help in the future of nuclear radiation management. Can I repeat this once again from here onwards? Yes, from here. Effects on effects of nuclear radiation. Short-term effects. First one is the acute exposure. The first one in that first one is radiation sickness. Radiation sickness. In this radiation sickness, symptoms include a nausea, vomiting, burns, and that organ damage. Next one is high doses. Can cause a severe burns, organ failure, or a death. Example, Chernobyl workers. But this is the instance which will happen in Ukraine in 1986. Then coming to that long-term effects. The long-term effects are also called as a chronic exposure. Long-term effects are also called as a chronic exposure. In that first one is a cancer risk, increases the likelihood of leukemia, thyroid, lung, and the bone cancers. The cancers are the now in today's situation, the cancers are the most common one. Then coming to that, genetic mutations. Genetic mutations can cause the birth defects and that hereditary diseases. In the third one is that the environmental contaminations, soil, water, and food chain contaminations. Example, stigma, stigma, environmental contamination, soil, water, and the food chain contaminations and all. Okay, the next one, a nuclear disasters and the accidents. So here they are going to mention only three most dangerous and important nuclear disasters. Mm, nuclear disaster they mention here. In that first one is the Chernobyl, 1986 Ukraine. It will uh, it uh, it will happen in 1986 in Ukraine. The reactor explosion caused a widespread radiation explode. There are widespread radiation exposed. Then what will happen? The radiations are exposed on the plants and the humans which are present in the particular Ukraine country. They are affected very adversely. Their health will be disturbed and each and everything is lost. They suffered a lot. Um, yes, Fourth one is that a nuclear disaster and the accidents. Nuclear disasters and the actors. Not that actors, accidents. Okay. Um, Chernobyl, 1986, Ukraine. The reactor explosion caused a widespread radiation explosion. Fukushima, 2011, Japan. Tsunami triggered a nuclear meltdown, released radioactive materials. 3 Mile Island, a 3 Mile Island in 1979 USA, a partial meltdown with a minimal radiation release. Minimum radiations release. 3 milestone, 3 Mile Island in 1979 USA, a partial meltdown with a minimal radiation release. Okay, and these are the effects of nuclear radiation. First one is the short-term effect, that is nothing but acute exposure, radiation sickness, high dose, are called as the acute exposures. In that radiation sickness, the symptoms include nausea, vomiting, burns, and that organ damage. In that high dose can cause a severe burn, organ failure, and a death. And second one is the long-term effect, chronic exposure, cancer risk, increases the likelihood, leukemia, thyroid, lung, and bone cancer. Next one is the genetic mutations can cause birth defects and that hereditary diseases. And third one is the environmental contamination, soil, water, and the food chain contaminations. Food chain contaminations, example, Fukushima. And the next one is a nuclear disasters and that accidents, Chernobyl, a reactor explosions caused a widespread radiation explode. In 2000, Japan tsunami triggered a nuclear meltdown, released the radioactive materials. 3 Mile Islands, 1979 USA, a partial meltdown with a minimal radiation release. Okay. Uh, Safety protections, personal protection, time, distance, and shielding, and nuclear safety regulations, radiation monitoring, controlled waste disposals, disappear and preparedness, and metal treatments, and the radiation exposures, and all. And future of